At the far end of the universe, there is a planet ruled by a being of utter evil. And there is only one man who dares challenge him. They are locked in a battle to the death. A battle that will take them across the heavens.
Stop him!
A battle that will finally be fought.
I want them hunted down and brought to me!
Across the face.
Police! Nobody move!
Of Earth.
I think I'm gonna need some backup.
Can you show us the way?
Of course.
No.
Somebody help me!
Julie!
From a distant galaxy, they have come to Earth. Dolph Lundgren as He-Man. Frank Langella as Skeletor. Only they have the powers to be masters of the universe. Live the adventure.
And we are live. This is This Movie Sucks, the podcast where we watch bad movies so you don't have to. I'm James Fry.
And I am Rage Ledbetter, Esquire.
And today's movie of the week is going to be Masters of the Universe, or He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, 1987 Dolph Lundgren. Oh, this is a far cry from the popularity of the cartoon series. I feel like this was He-Man's last breath to try and stay relevant, going out of the 80s into the 90s. Because if I remember correctly, this movie was made He-Man came out what year originally? 70s?
No.
80?
He-Man
83?
is an 80s creation. Yeah, about 82, 83. I remember first seeing the toys at Kmart, when Kmart's were around.
Okay, this was probably about 4 years after it, and this is before Mattel would switch over to their next money-making venture, which would be the Ninja Turtle toys. This was He-Man's last romp, and they did not do him justice. A couple of things right off the bat that were super weird about this movie. What was He-Man's alter ego?
Prince Adam of Eternia.
Adam of Eternia. Okay, so they don't even mention that he's Prince Adam in this whatsoever. He's just He-Man. They don't even bother with it. They don't even mention it. He's just straight He-Man the entire time. And, Dolph Lundgren, if you're going to get one actor in the 80s to play He-Man, he is definitely the guy to do it. He just looks like a He-Man.
Well, he was cheap, too, Schwarzenegger had already played Conan, so it's I know he was considered, but his price tag by the time they were filming this movie, his star had risen. The movie made it cut a lot of corners. The TV show itself was made to sell the toys, and so it was a cheapie of a TV show. If you've ever watched it, you'll see how cheap it was. The figure design was great. And the movie, coming from Canon Films, was even more cheap than the TV show. So they cut a lot of corners, and a lot of fans, initially on seeing it, if you'd watched the show or if you'd played with the toys, you're thinking, oh, this is going to be great. Then you see the movie and it's most of the cast is not in this movie, including Orko, who a lot of people found goofy, but younger audiences were like, hey, where's Orko?
That was the blue guy with the hat, right?
Yeah. The sorcerer character, the comedic sorcerer character, but it would have cost too much money for special effects.
Oh,
to have
yeah.
a floating magical creature around.
I mean,
so they replaced him in this movie.
and then it was before that time where you could like really just throw in an animated style character into a live action movie and get away with it. I mean, Roger Rabbit tried it, it went well. Cool World tried it, not so much.
And those came later.
Yeah. So it's it's one of those situations where they couldn't have had practical puppetry to pull off that character.
No.
Not at all.
And I don't think there was a desire for the animation like they had done for Mary Poppins. I think they felt it would have taken the audience. They might not have even had the budget for that.
Yeah, I think the entirety of this budget was just under 50 million, and I will have to fact check that real quick here, because I do know that since this was at the very end of Mattel's run, Canon bought the rights to He-Man years earlier, and since the toys were at their peak, and since Canon was already past its peak, yeah, they actually had to split that budget with Mattel 50-50, and I think Canon backed out even more because I think Mattel had to split the entire bill on this one, and that was a $22 million budget. Worldwide cumulative gross, though, only brought in $17 million, so they definitely lost their butts on it.
Yes, they did.
But yeah, no, this was probably Dolph Lundgren's second movie, because he had just done Rocky before this, right?
He'd done Rocky 4, yes. Cameo in A View to a Kill because he was dating Grace Jones. Blinking you'll miss him in that. But Rocky 4.
Wait, Dolph Lundgren dated Grace Jones?
Oh, wow. Yes, that was the big thing. He was dating Grace Jones.
Oh, man, talk about a monster mash.
Yeah, when he got casted for Rocky 4, he was dating Grace Jones. He was at a Hollywood party, and he was notified, hey, we've got this coming up. Yeah, he, like I said, blinking you'll miss him in A View to a Kill. It's the scene where Grace Jones lifts the guy over her head at the horse racing stables. Her and Christopher Walken are there, and Lundgren's one of the KGB agents.
I mean, that makes sense.
Yeah, that got his foot in the door, and yeah, He-Man was his first starring vehicle.
So I'm going to go off and just say it as blunt as possible. I do not think Dolph Lundgren should have been the lead in this movie. Like, his acting chops are just not on point.
Right.
What they were. And it's funny because, like, I feel like the people who made this movie knew that, which is why they made the emphasis on every character in this movie but He-Man. The emphasis is on Skeletor. The emphasis is on that one, I forget the character's name, but whatever random girl they have in the Earth world.
Yeah, and not in the comics, or not in the cartoons, not in the toys. Yeah.
Courtney Cox. Yeah, so they focus on Courtney Cox and Skeletor, and there's just absolutely no focus on He-Man. They don't really get into his backstory. It's not an origin story. It doesn't really fit in the timeline of the cartoon either. So it's like just kind of this off story that's a He-Man movie, but it's just really not about He-Man.
Bottom line, it's its own entity. If you know nothing about the Masters of the Universe toys, the cartoon, and you were just coming into this, you might think, wow, this is a very weird sci-fi action movie. If you didn't know anything about it, it might be something that, and I know it has its fans, but ultimately they needed a body, and Lundgren had the body. Frank Langella is Skeletor. Frank Langella brings it. He's one of those actors that no matter the material, he doesn't know how to just phone it in.
Right.
And his Skeletor, I couldn't believe it. I'm like, Frank Langella, wait, you mean the guy that played Dracula? And he's under the makeup. You never see him. He never seems to complain or be bitter about it. He does a good job as Skeletor.
Well, he actually is on record saying that this was one of his favorite roles because he did it for his kids. Because, like, both his sons, I believe, at the time were really into He-Man.
Yeah, okay.
So when the opportunity came along, I feel like his performance was so good, that was maybe one of the reasons why they shifted it over to it's more of a Skeletor focus, because he definitely is the highlight of this movie.
Yeah. I hear that a lot. And that always brings me joy as a film goer when you find out that someone took a role on The Simpsons because their kids loved the show back in the old days, or how Robert Redford took the role in the Captain America movie because of his grandkids, things like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and that little stuff, you know, like really, like it creates that personal connection between an actor and a role.
Mhm.
So they actually want to give it their all because, you know, they're doing it for a place of sincerity.
Yes, very well put.
All right, so let's get this one going. He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. The one thing I do remember about this movie, we never had it on VHS when I was a kid. I just remember always seeing it in the movie or in the rental store,
Yeah.
and just that box art is amazing. I mean, it's phenomenal, man. Like the super realistic oil painting style. It's I don't know, it was definitely like a theatrical poster that was writing a check that this movie could not cash.
There were a lot of those in the 80s too. You know, after Conan the Barbarian, there were a ton of movie posters that seemed to do that. Gary Goddard directed this film. It was the first and last film he ever did.
Now, you know what's funny is that I don't believe these were the original title sequence.
You might be right. Very underwhelming. Not standing off.
Because I could have swore it was more of a Superman ripoff. Because Canon bought the rights to Superman 4, correct?
Yeah, they got it from Warner Brothers. And that looked like, that intro with Castle Grayskull looked like concept art.
Yeah, really good concept art. Okay, and here's what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Yeah, this entire title sequence, soundtrack, it's so Superman-esque. They just went for it and they didn't care. I love it.
And Billy Barty, the Orko stand-in. Billy Barty had to be, before Peter Dinklage, Billy Barty was Hollywood's go-to little person.
Yeah.
He had a very long career.
Christina Pickles. Oh, that's a heck of a name.
Meg Foster, beautiful woman. Her eyes.
Her eyes are captivating.
Bill Conti. Oscar
He did.
for Rocky.
He did Rocky. And didn't he do another one that same year?
He might have. He's got. In fact, for years he composed the music at the
Oh
Oscar
wow!
broadcast.
Annie Colts
Richard
edited
Edlund.
this. Now she edited Lawrence of Arabia.
Yeah, she sure did. And Richard Edlund did the special effects. Richard Edlund's still around.
I'll have to fact check it.
Ghostbusters.
I believe she won an Oscar for Aviator as well.
I think so. And Richard Edlund had just come off of Ghostbusters and onto this.
Now see, so for like such a bad story, such a bad script, they really had some A-listers making this movie. Like this production crew is phenomenal.
By all rights, if they'd had the money, this could have been incredible. It could have lasted beyond the 80s. It wouldn't be so dated. Look at that. You see the Darth Vader influence there.
Now,
Even the music.
Oh yeah. Well, I mean, this entire set design is phenomenal, man. This throne room is probably one of the better set designs of the 80s. Now, from what I understand, this was actually a 2-story set, and they were going to do a battle scene where like they fell to the second story, but they never got to use it because they ran out of the budget. Because you could see how it's set up there, you know.
This is a movie that could use a remake because the potential is there. But without that money, it didn't come close to realizing its potential.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, you know, Netflix just optioned a new anime series with, they actually have Kevin Smith attached to it as well.
That makes sense. You know, the directors that were kids at the time, I could see them all. I could see Robert Rodriguez doing episodes, Smith doing episodes.
Oh, yeah.
Even Tarantino doing episodes.
Man, that makeup is so good and so bad at the same time. Like, I wish they would have, like, pushed the makeup a little bit out more just to hide that nose so they didn't have to have, like, those big black slits going up.
That is so weird. Everyone talks about the nose.
It's just, it's lazy. It's just a little bit sloppy. Now, from what I understand, like, the reason he had all, like, the Stormtrooper style villains is because Mattel didn't want him to kill anybody.
Yeah, that was a standard thing, especially in the 80s, since, there were standards and practices for TV shows, cartoons basically, or
Right.
shows for kids. You always had the anonymous robots or people you didn't get to know, just like in a shooting gallery or
Oh, yeah.
tearing people apart,
Yeah, I mean, they're just mindless automatons that get destroyed by He-Man. Now, see, the one thing I really wish they would have done more with this movie is kind of explore He-Man's world, because we don't spend too much time in Eternia, and, it just looks like a barren wasteland. Like, there's no culture, there's no world building. It just looks like they went out to the middle of the desert, set up some stuff, and just shot it as quick as possible.
When you have no money, Jim. That's why this is a reboot. I'd actually give a chance to the reboot. When you have no money, this is what you do. You know what? In a sense, this is like, hey, Jimmy, I'm going to give you your first Super 8 camera back in the day. Go to the park, go to the playground, whatever, make your movie. In so many ways, this movie comes off like a student film.
Right.
And before the net, lots of people made their own, like, either student films or with their 8mm or 88mm. This is what kids did. If you've ever seen the movie 88, what was that?
8mm?
Yeah. If you've ever seen that movie, that was typical of kids in the 80s. In fact, when I was a kid, I had mentioned Kmart earlier. There was a section in Kmart when I was a kid where you could get your own film, not digital, but film.
Yeah.
And you'd have your own camera. You could film your own stuff in backyards, parks, and stuff like that. Or you could watch it on a little projector and play it in your house. Yeah. And in the 80s, every kid wanted to be the next Spielberg. And they got their little 8mm cameras. And oh my gosh.
Yeah, that was that was definitely like the best era of movies, probably from like 1976 to about 86. Like, you just had just the best movies come out, because you had all these directors that could just do no wrong. Like, that entire group of directors were amazing. Mm-hmm. Spielberg, Lucas,
and
De Palma.
That was like the golden age of practical effects too, and model building. There were fan magazines that showed you how to do all that. Starlog, Fangoria. You'd go to the library and get books on monster makeup, you name it. And it was fully accessible for kids. That gave way. The evolution of that is how to do digital stuff on your home computer now, how to do digital effects, things like that.
Right.
But model building in your garage, in your backyard, that was, it was so great for kids.
Well, I mean, and speaking of models, man, just look at this set piece right here. Just look how much character it has.
Peter Jackson, he grew up around the same age as Tarantino and all those guys. I'm sure any director that's out now.
Oh, now see, I would love to see Peter Jackson's He-Man movie.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's funny is that I was looking through the director's, his career. And you know what this guy has done a lot of? Theme park movies. So he did like the Jurassic Park theme park movie. He did the Terminator 2 3D short. Like, he's done a lot of theme park movies.
The Terminator one, that one shows what you can do with a budget.
Oh, the Terminator ride?
Yeah, that's a great one.
I've never been on it. I have seen videos and it looks pretty cool.
It's a lot of fun.
I'd say that's one place I've never been, is Universal Studios. I've been dragged to Disney way too many times. More than I'd like to admit. But, Universal Studios always seem like the cool kids theme park.
Oh my gosh, Jimmy, that's totally for you. And playing Tila, that's Chelsea Field. Crushed on her since Last Boy Scout. She's Bruce Willis's ex-wife, or soon-to-be ex-wife in that movie. She's had quite a good career too.
What else was she in?
Outside of Last Boy Scout, Tales from the Crypt episodes, she's been in a lot of movies. And I'm blanking on them now.
I just remember John Cipher from all those episodes of Jag.
Okay, yeah.
Like it was always the show that I had to watch when I was at my grandparents' house. Unfortunately, though, I mean, he's been in a lot of stuff. He's been in Law and Order, Walker, Texas Ranger. I think he was in.
Yeah, and they made up new villains, and there were villains I wanted to see. There's more of Skeletor's posse than of He-Man. You only got Man-at-Arms and Tila on He-Man's side. But it's like, well, what about these other cool kids?
You know, and the thing that really, really grinded my gears about this movie is where the hell is Battle Cat?
Yeah.
You don't get any Battle Cat for this? Like, I understand it would have been a really expensive puppet. I get it. Like, a practical effects puppet that the dude Dolph Lundgren could ride would be astronomical. But, man, you could get your money's worth out of it.
You could have. You could. In fact, considering the time period, I can tell you right now the way to solve it. Stop motion still works for The Empire Strikes Back.
Oh yeah.
Far away shots, stop motion. Dolph Lundgren still around. Clash of the Titans, the original, still love that. I grew up on stop motion.
Well, I mean, and
you
like
could have done that for this. Now you can definitely Life of Pi. From what I understand, that tiger in Life of Pi, that wasn't even a real tiger through most of it.
Really?
Yes. And you could do that. You just color correct it.
Well, I mean, you didn't even need to have them in the whole movie. Like, you could cut your losses. You could just have them, like, you know, shown at the very end, you know, in the final battle. He just comes through the front door riding Battle Cat. I mean, at least to just have him mentioned in a fight scene would have been nice. But they just write out so much. I mean, they write out pretty much the entire world because, man, it's a barren wasteland.
Yes, yes. You know, I'm kind of CGI'd out, but when it's used correctly, when the film creators push the envelope and don't just let CGI. Hey, let's do something new with CGI. Every so often that still happens. It seems like it's getting less, but this is a movie just like Lord of the Rings that the technology finally caught up with it.
Oh,
with
yeah.
Fantasy. You could do a decent Masters of the Universe now, thanks to CGI. You didn't just let CGI, hey, whatever, we'll solve it later. We'll just put this in. No.
We'll just touch it up. Well, I mean, the one thing I will say is this movie looks good. Like, it still looks crisp. I mean, it's shot on 65 millimeters, so that's why probably the special effects still look as good as they do. But I mean, this movie still has a great look to it. It still looks, it holds up.
And let's look at this, or if you listen, Conti's music. It's like no one gave him the memo.
Yeah.
Hey, this is a cheapie. You don't have to give your all. All the dramatic beats are there. And poor Lundgren, no real acting experience. He has like 5 lines in Rocky IV.
I
put this
crush
on his
you.
shoulders
I
to
crush
carry.
you. If he die, he die.
He looks good in the, he looks good in the close-ups.
Well, you know what? From what I understand, and I don't know, we'd have to fact check it. From what I understand, they actually were Canon it was Mattel wanted to have Dolph Lundgren dubbed over in this movie.
Yes. I think it was Canon that wanted that. Yeah.
Was it Canon? Yeah. It probably would have been a good idea because he doesn't really deliver those lines well. He's always mucking up his words.
Only thing is, it's good that they didn't, because as technology has progressed, nowadays, thanks to better audio and better video, dubbing never looks good anymore. I've got the entire Bond collection.
Doesn't hold up.
The older ones, and it is so obvious what has been dubbed. Because maybe that actor didn't carry. But there's a lot of movies where it's like, oh my gosh, that is so dumb. Even the Star Wars movies, since they had filmed them in Britain, they had all these British extras. You look at the original Star Wars and like even Jedi, and you're like, that is not that person's voice. The audio and video syncing, it just looks too good, or the sound is just so obvious. That's not that person's voice. I know. And Dolph Lundgren's voice now, it would be so obvious that is not that person's voice.
No. And I don't know. Like, just imagine this movie if it was maybe filmed like 5 years later, after Dolph Lundgren actually had some experience acting, and they could have actually made a movie about He-Man.
The funny thing about this is that, well, as far as Lundgren goes, guy speaks multiple languages, but to me, he always sounds like a California surfer. when he's talking. Even though he's got a degree in engineering.
Really?
From MIT, yeah.
From MIT?
Dolph Lundgren's got a huge IQ. He's got a very high IQ.
You know, that actually gives me a new level of respect for Dolph Lundgren. I always figured he was just a bodybuilder who got into acting.
Martial arts, kickboxing champion. I mean, he's got a number of
I knew about the kickboxing, yeah.
He's got a number of titles, and yeah, he's like Mensa member city. Yeah, highly intelligent.
Now, whenever this happens, you know, you just leave your mythical fantasy world to go to Earth. Right there, that is just telling the audience we ran out of money. Like, right off the bat, like, just leaving your fantasy world to go hang out in, you know, a suburban neighborhood.
Yeah. We're going to film this right outside the house. Now, it is funny because if you watch it, you see some things in here now. Now, when I was younger, I hadn't read Jack Kirby's Fourth World storyline from DC. I was only familiar with maybe the Darkseid character at the time this movie came out.
Mm-hmm.
And that was from the Super Friends cartoon show. I didn't know much of anything because I wasn't a DC collector when I was younger. I knew DC characters, but I knew Marvel better. But now, knowing more about the Fourth World saga, Darkseid, the New Gods, and all that, I do see elements in this movie. I don't know if that was on purpose or.
Well, actually, they wanted to dedicate this movie to Jack Kirby.
That would make sense.
And you know, I mean, Mattel didn't go for it, but yeah, no, it was originally dedicated to him. Because, yeah, Ryder was a huge fan, so you could definitely see where they kind of borrowed from it. And man, I would love to see Dolph Lundgren play Darkseid, particularly now that he's older.
Yeah, he was in that Aquaman movie.
Dolph Lundgren was?
Yeah, that Aquaman movie with Jason Momoa.
I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, he's a character in it. I haven't seen it either, but I've heard about it. I've seen his footage. And it's like, man, you know, you could utilize this guy so much better.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. At this point in time, I'm just over the DC cinematic universe. There's no point to go forward, man.
I would like, you know, because he's a really likable guy if you watch the interviews.
Who, Dolph Lundgren?
Yeah, and his performance in that Creed 2, I like the subtleties in that. And I'm like, you know what? I think that this guy has earned either movie serial or TV serial where he could be an Indiana Jones type, where he could focus on the intellectual ability and the action adventurer type, you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
He'd be a great character like that.
Man, I wouldn't mind seeing him come back as the Punisher either. Like if he did like an old man Logan style Punisher story.
Back in the day, like around this time, you know, I certainly did not see CGI in the future or these big budget superhero movies. But yeah, back around 1990 or so, I'm like, man, Dolph Lundgren as Thor?
Oh yeah, definitely. You would have thought that nobody would make a movie based off a comic book, but they'd make it based off a toy line. It doesn't make sense. I mean, I guess, well, merchandising-wise, it makes sense. Well, story-wise, not so much.
You know what? Toys were making more money than comics. Because every kid had toys, not every kid was into comics. And if so, you couldn't say regularly into comics, casually into comics maybe. Or the properties. Play the games, watch the cartoons. Look how young Courtney Cox was. Jeez, man, she had to be in her 20s at this time.
Honestly, I wouldn't even know it was her if it wasn't for the titles, because, like, you know, even, like, with the eyes, it doesn't look like the Courtney Cox that you know.
It's so funny. It's like, man, she sure didn't know what was in her future.
No, she didn't know that she'd be in Friends.
This was a paying gig. Like you ask an actor, you know, it's like, hey, what kind of role are you looking for? And you can tell where they are in their career. One that pays.
Anything. And I like how Courtney Cox's whole motivation, the only thing that explored is, I just want to get out of town. I'm just going to leave this town. I'm just going to ditch my boyfriend and I'm gone.
You know what? That was a very popular thing in the 80s. I can say that thanks to the world of computers, the world's a lot smaller now, but there were a lot of people, as the world was changing and growing, a lot of people from small towns just wanted to get out of their burgs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe they still do, but I mean, where it was the focus of many movies.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of that entire generation like moved from the rural small towns into the suburbs or into the city. I mean, you have a huge disparity population-wise between, you know, rural parts of this country and metropolitan areas.
Yeah, the 70s, early 70s, a lot of people started heading for the suburbs out of the cities.
I mean, probably a smart thing to do. If they didn't, they'd be on opiates.
It was funny, yeah. People trying to get out of the cities and get to the suburbs in the 70s, and then in the 80s, oh, I live in this burg. I want to get to where the action is.
Right, I want to go to the city.
Or a city instead of this little. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
Right, well, cities are always going to be where the action is. Unless you want to do some real shady stuff, then you're going to go out in the middle of nowhere.
But you know what? Considering, say, New York in the 70s.
Oh, New York in the 70s was a shithole.
Yeah, I got to get out of here. I got to raise my family nice and quiet place.
Oh, and he steals the fried chicken.
Only if it's good. Only if it's good. Chicken and hot sauce. Love it.
See, he does it right, man.
Good Billy.
He does it right.
I love Billy Barty and Foul Play.
That's the one thing, whenever I get fried chicken, like, I always ask for, like, extra hot sauce. I want to be able to, like, fully dip it in there, you know what I mean?
You know what? That is something a lot of movies, think about it, a lot of movies will have that stranger in a strange land, taken out of their environment and dropped into some environment in another dimension or outer space or something like that. They never seem to be hungry.
Right.
Think about everything that Luke went through in Star Wars, from his aunt and uncle getting burned alive, him leaving the planet.
Yeah.
We never see Luke eat in the original Star Wars.
There's 2 meals he attends, right? So in the original Star Wars, he has the meal with his aunt and uncle, but you don't see him eat anything.
No.
Like, they pour the milk and they talk, but he doesn't eat anything. And then I believe in Empire, he brings out his little rations kit, and I don't think he eats anything then. I think Yoda steals his food.
Yes. Guy never eats. The characters never eat. In fact, the only time it's off camera is The Empire Strikes Back, where Darth Vader's like, hey, join us for dinner. But it's like, wait a minute. You think about it, it's like, I don't think that was a real meal, because I couldn't see Darth Vader taking off his helmet to eat.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, I mean, but, like, I don't know, does Darth Vader really need to eat at that point? Like, he seems like he's more sustained by the Force and his electronics than anything else. I mean, he is more machine than that.
Got him out. That's hilarious.
Man, I wonder what kind of food Darth Vader would get down on.
Pizza. No, just kidding.
I mean, he seems like a pasta guy, you ask me. You know what I mean? But maybe I'm just thinking of him like a mob boss.
That'd be Jabba.
Oh, no, you know Jabba will eat anything. He will eat anything.
Eat himself, according to Spaceballs. Pizza the Hut.
Pizza the Hut.
Trapped in his limo, ate himself to death.
I don't know, man. I think Jabba had the best life in those movies. I mean, think about it, man. The dude's just hanging out with his sex slaves, just raking in the money, sending hitmen out to do his dirty deeds.
Google pictures of Jabba online. You'll see he's even got a tattoo on his forearm. I'm serious. The puppet's got a tattoo on his forearm.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
When
I'll
I
have
was
to check
a kid,
that
I
out.
loved that little touch. He's got a tattoo on his forearm.
I just like how like they don't really like explain how the Hutts came to power. It's just kind of hinted at the entire time. That was one of the things I was really hoping that Solo film was going to get into. But instead they focused on, I don't know, Crimson Dawn or whatever dumb organization they made up. Yeah, I was not a fan of that movie.
Jeez, I think I was an adult before I realized that it truly was a takeoff of the mobster genre.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought that was
Yeah.
his full name, Jabba the Hutt. Like Jabba was his first name, the Hutt was his last name. I didn't get it like Vinny the Sicilian or something like that. And I'm like, he had to pack on, I think Lundgren had to pack on like 30 pounds, close to 30 pounds, because he was in shape, but he was skinny. And Stallone's like, nah, you gotta, for this character, you gotta put on some
Yeah, you gotta beef up. You can't be lean.
And he continued to do so. The guy is still, he's in his 60s and he's still cut. For Creed, purposely to make his son stand out more in Creed 2, he wears baggy clothing to make it look like he's diminished. But the guy is still, and friggin' Stallone's a monster. And I've seen the trailer for that new Rambo movie. It's like, gosh, this man is like 70.
They made another Rambo?
It comes out in a few weeks.
Oh,
and it actually
my God.
looks good.
Really?
Yeah, at first I was like, oh, not again. And then when I got the background of it and the 2 trailers I've seen, I'm like, okay, now I'm curious.
Now, see, one thing I like about this Cosmic Key, like, it's very similar to the, what was that, the holophone from Futurama? You know, where he plays it and makes the little hologram?
I think that's where Futurama got it.
Oh, had to have been.
Now, you see, here's treading a fine line. One of the ways they could have gone with this, okay, we've got virtually no budget. We could go the camp and laugh factor and end up having a legacy like Flash Gordon.
Yeah.
And it could be successful that way.
Oh, there he is. There's Beastman.
I remember his figure for this, and I think his figure, when they made figures based on the movie characters.
Did they make figures based on the movie? Did they repackage old ones?
No, they made movie versions of the figures back then.
Now, see, I would like to see some. I'd like to see McFarlane Toys like do a movie series based on this because, man, those characters have some potential to make really good figurines. Look at all the detail on them.
Yeah, the Beast Man, that was a pretty good translation, and it was so funny because I'm trying to think. They only had like one wave of them.
Okay.
And they were supposed to, come out in accordance with the film, but they didn't, like by the following year, they weren't around anymore. And it was so funny because the snake guy, I believe they made a figure of him too, and there were a group of kids, that were in the audience when I saw this, probably around my age, no, younger than me, but they were laughing. They thought he was so cool because the snake movements he does, obvious dancers, break dancing, popping, locking type thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Check old boy out. Look at him. Get down. A movie like this in a predominantly black neighborhood is more entertaining than the movie itself.
Oh, man.
Because it becomes like a sporting event.
The absolute worst place to have a fight scene, a high school gym. Are you guys...
There he is. Look at him. Pop and lock. Man, good grief. On HD TV like this, didn't that look like it was more video than... Man, it really...
Yeah.
The blue screens back then, that really stood out.
And you know what? Probably because of that 65 millimeter, like it holds up, like it looks good. Man, they're gonna ruin the dance for all these poor kids.
I think the 50s and the 80s, there were more high school gym sequences in film than anything else. 50s and 80s.
Yeah, I can see that.
Because I'm thinking Back to the Future, Teen Wolf, lots of movies in the 80s.
Well, you know what the bad thing is? I don't even think these guys are students here. I just think her boyfriend was hired to play this dance because she's talking about moving out of town. Is she even in high school in this movie?
She probably was playing a high schooler.
Oh, man, she's crawling underneath that stage. How much gum she's going to get on her? It's just awful.
Wow, this guy's got it all.
Right, why have a laser gun when you can just shoot arrows out of your wrist?
They actually you know, the fire got out of control. This gym almost burned down for real.
Huh. So you know that Dolph Lundgren was originally up for the role in Running Man, and because of Masters of the Universe scheduling, it ended up going to Schwarzenegger. Probably for the best. I wouldn't want to see a Dolph Lundgren Running Man movie. Not at that stage in his career. Now, speaking of remakes, The Running Man would be a great remake. I would love to see them do that with today's technology. Oh, is this the one?
87.
Oh, wait, so this was the action figure based on the movie then?
Yeah, that character.
That is a cheap action figure. Yeah. Holy hell.
Because the original action figures are kind of cartoon based.
Right. And I can see how that is that's just the exact same format as those Ninja Turtle toys.
Yes. Bow legs, all that.
Now, he wasn't even in the cartoon,
Most
correct?
of these weren't. That Snake guy wasn't in the cartoon. Blade wasn't in the cartoon.
And then none of the henchmen were either then, I reckon.
No.
Like
the
none of
Skeletor, you didn't have mass henchmen, and you didn't need them on the cartoon show because there was no violence on the cartoon show. Like I said, the toy comes with a sword, a battle axe, and stuff like that, but there was no killing on the cartoon show. And there was no fighting, there was no physical anything on the cartoon show. So you didn't need multiple.
I see, I always hated action figures with too many accessories because I always lost the accessories first. Like, it was always the first thing to go. So I'd have a sad He-Man who couldn't couldn't summon the powers of Grayskull because I lost his sword in the couch cushion. I will say some of these fight scenes are well choreographed. They would never allow He-Man to hit in the cartoon. He'd just throw his guys everywhere.
There were parents upset about this. It's like, wait a minute, I let my kid watch the show, and the show isn't violent like this. And they took their kid, without looking at the fact that it is rated PG.
Well, from what I understand, it had such a limited release that they would only have matinee showings for this movie because they couldn't get it in a lot of theaters at night, so it just kind of branded it as a kids movie.
Yeah, they did. Well, they were trying to market to its audience.
Right. But I mean, you could definitely. This could definitely be a date movie. I mean, it's got a lot of action. I mean, it's got a really, really, really bad subplot where this boyfriend's such a dweeb. I mean, I get he's a synthesizer guy, they usually are, but holy hell, this guy's lame. like you find this cool thing, well, you're going to take it to the music shop to get it appraised. Like, come on. Oh, this is probably the most 80s set piece.
Look at that guy's suit.
Yeah, I mean, the most 80s set piece in the movie. Definitely. Oh, wow. So these are the original figures?
Yeah, from 87.
They actually put hair on that one? That's awful.
Yeah, but it was like, there were a few figures like that. So Beastman
should not have hair. Well, first off, you just shouldn't put hair on an action figure. That's just a bad idea. Because, I don't know, if you're anything like me, playing with action figures when I was a kid, like, they're going to be swamped around in mud. Who knows what sand pits they're going to end up in.
Yeah, bathtubs.
Leave it outside, it'll get rained on. I mean, you know what I call that? It's a bacteria trap.
A bacteria trap. Well put.
Just hanging out with He-Man in abandoned buildings.
I'm thinking that it is bothersome how easily people accept the most unusual circumstances in movies. They get a quick explanation, they're up to speed, and
right.
They aren't flipping out that, I can't believe this actually happened. Hey, I'm talking to aliens right now.
No one's in denial at the situation. Because, like, I mean, I don't know, if I would have seen everything that chick goes on, like, there's still reasonable explanations. A bunch of bounty hunters are chasing this buff dude around in costumes, like, alright. Oh, there he is, Strickland!
Yes, James B. Tolkien had quite the career.
This movie and Back to the Future trilogy are the only ones I know of. What else was he in?
Top Gun. He's
in
Maverick's
Top Gun.
he's Maverick's commanding officer.
Oh, man, I haven't seen Top Gun
Oh my
in so
gosh.
long.
He goes back to, he was in Serpico. He was one of Al Pacino's superiors. And it was so funny because due to the success of Back to the Future, as soon as he showed up in this, people started laughing. It's like, hey!
Strickland!
The thing that always stood out to me about James B. Tolkien in this is They gave him a cool, badass leather jacket. And he always comes off as an authority figure. Seeing him in a leather jacket like that, I'm like, oh man, this guy looks like he'd kick ass in that suit.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like that's definitely a cop that's not gonna take you to the station. He's gonna take you to some like back garage and get at you with a pair of pliers. So you're gonna tell me where this key is or not, kid? Oh, it's Christine.
Probably is. Probably was on the back lot.
I wouldn't doubt it. Christine came out, what, 82? 81? 83, yeah. I would not doubt it, because they bought up, like, oh, man, I want to say, like, 40 versions of that same car. That's also a very bad movie that should be on this list.
Oh, and I disagree. I love Christine.
Christine? Oh, man.
And now, just like everything that Carpenter did in the 80s, Christine is considered a classic. What amazes me the most about Christine, if you've ever read the book, that King wrote them both at the same time.
The movie and the book?
Yeah.
Really?
But they're both so different. They go in two different directions, and the book was more fanciful because of the budget than the movie could be.
Well, the book also explained more about the car. Like you
Well,
could see,
because-
like the old owner's ghost in the back seat.
But you knew what was going on, just like with Cujo.
Right.
Cujo, you're in the mind of the dog. Everything that the dog is thinking, it's narrated.
Yeah.
You know? And so you do have all this background with Christine, what Christine is feeling and stuff like that in the book. And what Carpenter did as far as building the suspense and bringing it to a low level, the acting in that is, oh my gosh, yeah, I like Christine a lot as a movie. I didn't appreciate it as much when I was younger, but yeah.
Oh, man. Yeah, that one's definitely worth a rewatch. I haven't seen that in probably 15 years.
And Carpenter's a master because it's like, all right, how can we get this shot? How can we do this with the limited budget we have? Very imaginative. When you don't have money to throw at a problem, it makes you a lot more creative, and he certainly was.
Yeah, definitely. He's a guy who knew how to stretch a dime, that's for sure. This movie just seems like they blew their entire budget on the throne room, and that was it.
The makeup effects and the limited special effects and the set design, that is pretty much where all the budget.
Oh, no, and he's killing the snake guy. Man, just evaporated him. That look on that guy's face was great.
Yeah, because it's not like this cast was the upper echelon as far as salaries. Langella didn't get millions, and Foster didn't get millions. Foster, in fact, was usually exploitation fodder. I mean, soap operas and sci-fi and horror.
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with his filmography.
Loved him in the movie Dave. In Dracula, he was great in John Badham's Dracula from '79.
Was that the one with Christopher Lee?
No. Christopher Lee had retired from Dracula. Christopher Lee played Dracula from the 50s to early 70s for Hammer Films.
What's the one that was in the 70s, like 72, I think. That was really
Jack
good.
Palance did one where that was probably around 72. Jack Palance played Dracula. And then in 79, Frank Langella played Dracula. John Williams did the music for that movie.
Oh, really?
Sir Laurence Olivier was Van Helsing. Donald Pleasance was in it from Halloween. Yeah, if you ever get the chance to see Dracula. If you ever get the chance to see the Dracula from '79, yeah, very well done. All-star cast.
Was Dolph Lundgren in it? Like, I would have liked to see this movie come out like right after he did Universal Soldier, because by then he had found his groove with acting.
Mm-hmm.
I think they could have done it well. That's another one I really liked, Universal Soldier. That's a bad movie as well. It's a good movie, but it's a bad movie.
Again, it was the idea, great concept, idea of casting him and Van Damme. It had a lot of potential, which is why I think it had so many sequels. I felt the choreography could have been better, considering both of them were very good at what they had.
Oh, yeah. They're both like kickboxing champions, weren't they?
Yeah, but I always their choreography in the film never impressed me. It was like the movie fell just below its potential. Um, some of the sequels had better choreography, but the story was old and tired by the time they got around to it.
Right. I like how there's no extras in this city at all. Like, have you noticed that? Like, the streets are just barren. You have portals opening all over town, goons just filling up back alleys, and like, there's a pizza shop. The sign literally says pizza right there. Like, there's no like delivery guy coming out the back to hop on his bike.
That's hilarious. Yeah, you're very right.
Maybe Courtney Cox is onto something. Everyone else left town. She should too.
That's pretty funny. Well, I guess you gotta pay extra.
Yeah. When you do not have
Just
a budget.
dress up the crew. Hey, crew, whatever you're wearing, just walk around.
Yeah, or like, get some actors' relatives or cousins out there. Oh, Strickland, why are you messing with something
He
you
told
don't?
him to press it.
You're gonna listen to this college kid on how to operate this interdimensional technology? Come on now, Strickland, you know better than that.
There's so much that's goofy in this film that you're taken sometimes out of the moments, because it's like, I'm noticing his tie. I shouldn't be thinking about his tie.
Looks like a candy cane. Well, I'm just gonna, put my barber pole in a double Windsor here.
I'm looking at Meg Foster's headdress and her golden brassiere.
Oh.
And the obsession with fried chicken in this movie.
I wonder if that was a product placement. There had to have been something going on there.
Must have been a localized chain, because I don't recognize it whatsoever.
They could give them all the fried chicken they wanted for the crew, put their logo in there a few times. God, I can just see why Courtney Cox wants to leave town. Her boyfriend is such a pud. You find a key that can open dimensions, and you want to use it as a synthesizer. It just boggles the mind, man. They should have wrote this guy completely out. There's no point.
And Tolkien this is right up his alley. The guy that's always complaining about something.
Man, they said that Meg Foster's costume weighed 45 pounds for this.
That's just wrong. What, you can't make fake metal? Well, it may not film right, I guess, maybe. That's wrong, put somebody through that. Look at that thing. That was a toy.
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
there's Burger King. All right, so now we got some actual product placement. That's nice.
Though,
That was just left over.
I guess so. Man, you can't even clean up your house without monsters breaking through the front door. Yeah, that's gonna stop.
Yeah. Throw a napkin at Beastman. That's really gonna help. This guy's such a pud, man. Courtney, you need to just run off with He-Man and be done with him. Look at this, get tossed around like a rag doll. I'm glad, man. I'm glad. Oh, Beastman rips his heart out. That blade will tell you otherwise.
Hey, what's changed in the last 24 hours in your life? I think that would help you.
If he's going to tell you where the key is either way, why are you just going to destroy his apartment? Like, why would you take the time? Oh, now you're getting the backstory of their daughter. Now, see, that's kind of creepy. That her boyfriend's keeping, like, paper clippings of, like, her parents' death.
Yeah, they were talking about it earlier.
Like,
she holds the locket with her parents. That's,
right,
common.
right.
People always have lockets with their dead parents in them.
I don't know, man. It just seems like over-exposition. Like, if it's already been mentioned, you really need to show a newspaper clipping that they died in a plane crash.
You know what? Back in the day, before the internet, somebody could have been in the bathroom and they missed the locket. See?
Yeah.
We gotta bang it over their head a few times.
You gotta know why she wants to leave town. There's nothing tying her down. She's just got this pud boyfriend. Oh, and they're gonna use the newspaper clipping to go find the girl. I thought you just put a truth collar on him, though.
That's a pretty cool truth collar thing, I'm sure.
Okay. So once again, these people, they have an entire ship with all these troops in the front yard of this suburban neighborhood. How is not anybody calling the cops on this?
Why are the lights not coming on in all the homes?
Yeah.
I would love, see, if I were doing something like this, somebody, hey, would you people keep it down? I'm trying to get some sleep.
No one cares about your intergalactic spat.
Even if the person or their house got blown up, it's like, all right. Yeah, that'd be a good thing to have, just for the realism. And then they leave them there with it. I wonder what that was made out of. That was
some sort of foam, I reckon.
Well, no, back in the day, they used to cannibalize parts to make it look more sci-fi.
Well, yeah, that was before LED lights, too, so you actually had little bulbs in there. God, that mullet is just phenomenal. Just look at that mullet.
I think that was a wig. Or maybe it was his hair. I don't remember him ever having hair like that ever again.
I mean, I would hope it was a wig. I would hope he would never agree to have that haircut because it is awful. However, as far as mullets go, that's probably like the He-Manest of mullets.
Yeah, because if they'd given him the bowl cut of the figure and the, oh my gosh, in the cartoon. Why is there a chili pepper on the oven magnet on the refrigerator? What? See, if I'm noticing things like that, yeah, I'm out of the movie.
Yeah, of all the things just to leave on there, just a random chili magnet. It looks a lot like it. If not, Starship Troopers took some inspiration from Man-at-Arms.
Mm-hmm.
Once again, they're just flying in open airspace. No one's seeing them. Look at all those different houses. Not a single person on the streets.
This is the only guy in the city that night.
Now, see, I'd like to see Strickland in a, just like a really, like, down, hard beat detective story. Like a hard-boiled film noir.
Yeah. He's got the same delivery in every film.
Oh, yeah. That really plays the same character in every film for the most part, just like the hard ass.
I didn't care for the movie Dick Tracy, but he played a character in that was like always afraid.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers. And so that was probably the only time I think he was ever different. A worry ward. That movie made me so mad because I wanted to see all these characters incarnate, and they get killed off in the first 5 minutes.
Now, I'm not one who is, I'm not a fan of reboots, nor am I a fan of like the super dark gritty reboots. But if you're gonna make a super dark gritty reboot of a comic franchise, Dick Tracy's the one to do.
Oh yeah.
Oh, like set it in the 30s, Prohibition, like you could do it up right.
Yeah, instead of trying to be its own entity, it was trying very hard to be Batman. It went a little too far.
Well, the one thing I will give that movie credit for is that the prosthetics and makeup in that movie are phenomenal.
Yes, they are.
They look great. The actors
in
inside of them didn't do too good of a job, but the makeup looked great.
Well, the weird thing is, they had some actors in these suits, and you see the stills and the photos. Oh, I can't wait to see them on film. Like I said, they killed off like 80% of them in the opening scene. I was so mad.
Yeah, they got rid of, I couldn't even name off Dick Tracy's Rogue Gallery,
Yeah.
Panface, or Flip Flop, Mushmouth. Well, not Mushmouth, was a Cosby Kid.
David, what you thinking, Jimmy? Wow, look at that. He looks like he's playing football.
Oh, see, this is what this guy gets for being the only guy on the street. Just get your entire shop destroyed. Man, something tells me they just like ripped that costume design from G.I. Joe, because those look like Cobra Commander troops. Or at least the helmet does.
Iron Grenadiers, Destro's soldiers, which actually they came a little bit later. Destro's Iron Grenadiers. The inspiration probably came from these guys.
Now, G.I. Joe, that toy craze, well, I know it was before, when they had the original G.I. Joes, but the G.I. Joes of the 80s, that probably came right after He-Man. That was like, what, 85?
No, they predated them. That was
really?
They rebooted before the phrase was around.
Right.
G.I. Joe in 82.
82, okay.
And G.I. Joe ruled the toy shelves for like a decade. I mean, they made a lot of money.
Oh,
they were more successful than the original 60s storyline.
Now, see, I was more of a 90s kid, but the one thing I do remember is whenever there'd be garage sales,
yeah,
I would always get G.I. Joe figures.
Yep. generation before. That was the thing about garage sales, because when I was a kid in the 70s, a lot of 60s G.I. Joe toys.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was funny because I never necessarily, watched the He-Man cartoons as much or had the toys, but I found Castle Grayskull at a garage sale,
Yeah.
and I forced my babysitter to buy it for me for $1. I wish I held on to that. That's probably worth at least $50, $100 these days. Boyfriend is fucked. I'm just going to say, you just took a cop's gun. That dude's going to jail for like 7 years. I mean, it serves him right. Dude is a pud. But still, you don't touch a cop's gun, man. Lucky he didn't get shot.
Yeah, obviously he's not from Chicago.
No, not at all. They never really actually state where the portal ended up. It seems like a town in Ohio somewhere.
Yeah, definite Midwestern flavor.
Oh, but it isn't gonna be her. Just give her the key. That's all she wants.
Still wrestling with a gun.
Dude, he's just playing with him. Strickland could fuck this dude up if he really
He's
wanted
a
to.
hard-boiled veteran cop, yeah.
I don't know why he's wrestling around with this kid. I just would have put him in a chokehold and been done with it. Oh, I'm just going to grab the key and go give it to your dead mama. Oh, dun dun dun. That scream is just so awful. Oh, send in Beastman.
That's a horror movie scream if ever there was one.
Oh, the fact that she like rubbed her hair at the same time.
Yeah. And where were you guys?
Nah, man, talking about good makeup, that makeup is just god awful.
Yeah.
Like, I almost feel like it would have been better if they had just gone with a puppet for that guy as opposed to just, a short person in a bunch of makeup.
I'll tell you right now, I have guilty pleasure movies, but this,
No.
yeah, I don't
No.
really have anything to salvage from this one.
I mean, the only thing you can really salvage is that the editing is good, some set pieces are good, and like you can see with like with the production crew that they had on it, if the money had really been there, like if they had $50 million to drop into this movie at the time, they could have come up with a great He-Man movie. But they only had $17 million.
Alas, what could have been.
These guys have just been shooting at you with lasers for the last 10 minutes, and you think your shotgun's gonna stop them? Come on now, Strickland.
Yeah, he never called in any backup.
Yeah, this entire time he hasn't
He's the
called.
only cop in that town.
I mean, the town only has like 3 people in it. It's Charlie, Courtney Cox, and the musician. And they really did go away from He-Man's original costume design, too. Like, giving him a cape and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, here comes Skeletor.
And it's like, why would he have a kid?
And mind you, this is happening on Main Street of a decent-sized town. And there's still no cops.
I don't know, it must be a small town because it's like the streets were clear by sundown.
Right. They're in the one town that just has curfew in effect.
Now, it would be hilarious if it took place on Halloween, then people would notice, oh, look, there's a parade and stuff like that.
Now, see, that would
Everybody's
be...
all dressed up.
Yeah, that would be cool. Now, that would be able to justify this, though. Just dudes on hoverboards flying around.
That is definitely Kirby inspired.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And Skeletor's drone thing.
That is straight out of Kirby. Just look at the design of
Yeah,
it.
it's basically Metron's chair.
Yeah, just how they had the designs, like, encapsulating him.
I remember that toy.
The entire Flying Throne?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
I wonder if the merchandising for this film helped them recoup some of the losses. Like, how many toys do you think it sold? Because He-Man still wasn't relevant after the movie, so it didn't give them the renaissance of toy sales that they were hoping for.
True.
Because I feel like if the toy sales were there, they would have done a sequel.
Jeez, you guys are lousy shots.
There we go, finally.
Shot him in the back.
Yeah, He-Man's definitely the kind of guy to shoot you in the back. Never trust a guy in a loincloth.
At least he doesn't have fuzzy shorts like on the cartoon.
This is true. I like how, like, as he's running in that scene, you can obviously see, like, the sword fall off his back.
Is that a drive-by? A flyby, right?
I don't know. The action scenes are still pretty well done. Oh, this is the part I remember. Oh, at least he lost the cape. Got himself a makeshift goblin glider.
Yes, it is very reminiscent. Very reminiscent of the Goblin glider.
Actually, probably more the jack-o'-lantern glider, because it wasn't his,
True.
just like the circular
yeah, it wasn't
disc.
just- Yeah, he's a better shot when he's moving faster instead of stationary. How do you do it?
And honestly, like, the special effects in this scene, like, it still looks pretty good, him flying around and stuff. He just snatched it right out of her. You had one job, lady. You just had to hold that.
Yeah. Always comes down to a jousting tournament.
Yeah, when it comes to flying discs. How is he flying upside down?
Without falling off.
Like, there's no straps on that thing. I guarantee you his shoes aren't magnetized in any way.
He hit that guy with a sword, and the guy blew up.
They're all...
Half, blew up.
Yeah, I think they're all robots. See, I just really wish they would have explored more of the backstory. Like, how did Skeletor get a robot army between the cartoon series and now?
The cartoon does not exist.
Right, I don't know how you can call this movie canon.
The only thing canon about it is the studio.
Right.
You know, he is very Doctor Doom.
Oh yeah, definitely.
You know what? With this HD, I never noticed before, but with this HD broadcast, notice Skeletor's gloves.
Yeah.
The fingertips are silver skulls.
Oh yeah, they are little skulls.
Yeah, he's got skull fingertips.
That's good costume design. Like putting details in that they knew nobody would see. I like how he just shows up. Like there's no really real hostage situation. He just comes in, blades swinging, knows that he's outgunned, but doesn't care if Skeletor executes all his friends. I'm just gonna dogpile him.
And I also have the question: why didn't you just lead with that Skeletor? You got manpower that's down now, thanks to you.
Yeah, I mean, like when he threw all those dudes off, he should have ran straight for Skeletor.
As soon as he showed up, hey, don't do anything.
It's almost like he's like dismissing how bad that line was delivered. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, well done, E-Man. Think about how many times like Dolph Lundgren probably had to deliver every single line over and over and over again just to get it right.
This movie seems to be trying to hit so many different levels. Hey, date night movie. Kids movie,
Yeah, action movie for the guys.
Sci-fi for the geeks.
Yeah, it's trying to do too much at once. If they could have just, kept it in Eternia. I mean, because, you could expand that world out without having a big budget. But look what Beastmaster did. Beastmaster, it felt like a real lived-in world. And they did that with minimal sets. They just had the one big temple set, really.
Yeah, everything else was filmed like the beginning of this movie had a quarry or something.
Right. And but even with those budget restraints, they were still able to, create a lived-in world that felt like it was a real place. I mean, they could have done that in Eternia. Even if you just spread out the world and you said everything battle-torn from Skeletor, you know what I mean? That could at least be an explanation why there's nobody there. But there's nobody in this town either, so...
The pacing of this movie, the beginning, at least it kept you busy. It kept the pace up. But at this point, after that battle, boy, this is where you hit the wall.
Yeah, they should have... once they went back to Eternia, they should have cut the subplot out with the humans right there. And they should have just done their last stand, But, this is... See that little guy there? So, funny story.
Oh, I know the story.
All right, you can probably tell it better than me.
Big boy, yeah. That kid won a contest. Mattel had a contest where, to time with the toys, you enter the contest. If you win the contest, you win a part in the Masters of the Universe live-action film. And, well, he did win, but by the time that the winner was announced, all the Earth scenes had been filmed. All they had were the Eternia scenes, and there was no place to logically put a human child in Eternia. They had to honor the contract.
They just put him in as Big Boy.
Yep, gave him a costume, and so he got to play Pig Boy in this movie, and they even gave him a credit.
Man, now think about what a letdown that would have been if you were that
definitely.
kid. Like, because if they would have scheduled it right, you could have He-Man saving him from an explosion, giving him a high five. Like, it could have been a real magical moment that would have been great press for Mattel.
That would have been.
But no, we're just going to throw him in as Pig Boy.
Yeah. Well, let's face it. It was a money-making venture, or an attempt at it. There was no sincerity for that as a fan. It's like, let's find a way. Just find another way to get the press, get the money. This has got some homoeroticism elements, right? And sadomasochism.
Oh,
right?
yeah, definitely. Skeletor is his dom daddy. Making his mom watch, too.
Dude, that's a weird.
I'm just so glad we're back in this throne room.
I'm looking at those symbols, seeing if there's any dirty writing up there. Man, Blade really got a big
Oh,
role.
the laser rip. Yeah, out of all the henchmen, he really stands out. It should have been Beastman that was doing all this. But I guess the costume could have been
Look at
limited.
that. He's off in the choreography.
Oh, definitely. They should have fixed that in post. They could have, because they could have animated that whip going a bunch of different ways. Oh, great. He called in the morning shift, the afternoon shift, and the evening shift. Glad you got the entire force of 4 guys there.
There's too many of you. Spread out.
Nah, now we're not going to stick in a group. We're going to divide up. Hit them individually.
And he starts playing Rocket by Herbie Hancock.
Oh, good product placement by Osseo.
Spider webbing?
Gotta be.
You go to Party City and get that stuff?
Well, and the point would be, like, what's the point of having the spider webbing there? Like, you already have it set up. Like, why do you need to connect a bunch of spider webs to it so you can hang that one thing there? Well, I'm glad he's just got these giant holograms set up all over the planet,
Yeah, out in the middle of the desert.
Well, I mean, you got to broadcast to all, 4 of Eternia's citizens.
Boy, that actress didn't have any demands. We don't need you to stand there and cross your hands. You know what? It's a pet peeve of mine that when somebody has gotten wounded in a movie, that they don't even try to clean themselves up, because Beastman's been like that for like over an hour.
Yeah, they just didn't
like,
want to.
Dude, you've traveled here and there. You couldn't even go clean up in the bathroom. Look at your face.
Right, particularly that hours have gone by, like you wouldn't like notice that just like hanging out in your hair.
What are your friends to tell you this?
Man, I mean, just given that he doesn't clean off his blood, like he's got to have a lot of crumbs in there from just like meals throughout the day. Like something tells me Beastman doesn't shampoo and condition often.
We're gonna get him a perm.
Oh, don't kneel, Dolph. That's what Skeletor wants. That's what he's been after this whole movie, just for you to kneel.
He goes to the Zod School of Motivation.
Oh, I never even noticed that the villain had a hook for a hand.
Yeah. This always reminded me of Big Trouble in Little China, which he had worked on that too, Richard Edlund.
Really?
Yeah, Richard Edlund had worked on that. So no, I guess technically it would have been Ghostbusters, Big Trouble in Little China, and this.
I thought the Big Trouble in Little China didn't come out until like 87, 88.
No, it wasn't 88. I thought it was 86, but maybe it was 87.
No, 86 sounds about right. Big Trouble in Little China sounds like it would have came out a little bit before this one. And
He never looked that ornate in the comics. That's cool. Even
I mean, it's just gaudy, man. He looks like Trump's living room.
even
Like, look at all that gold and jewels.
See, he could be a rap star.
He definitely could, man. Hey, what do you do with your shotgun, Strickland?
Hope it works on their armor. Oh, well,
Meanwhile, He-Man's just gonna take him out with his bare hands.
because he's Man, shoot first, ask questions later.
Right? Tell me what the hell's going on right now. What do you think? You're getting shot at by lasers. Now's not the time to ask questions. Now's the time to kick some ass. Oh, come on, He-Man. Don't just body slam these guys.
I believe so because he hits up the conventions.
Does it? Oh, I'd like to see him come to a con.
Because I know right around...
I definitely have to have him call me a slacker. Oh, come on, He-Man. You got to pull it out.
That doesn't sound right.
Ooh, and he breaks Skeletor's staff in half.
That was the last thing filmed.
That was?
And
Before...
then, before the director brought everyone back after he secured his money from his salary.
Yeah, so like they had to cut production on this battle scene because Canon and Mattel just ran out of money.
Yep.
So the director had to take a cut from his pay to be able to pull off the rest of the movie. Like, that is ridiculous. But this was probably, what, the last film put out by Canon? Or did they force out some direct-to-video releases after this?
No. The direct-to-video market hadn't really come in. I don't even know if that was Langella for that, but...
Probably not.
I'm trying to think, because it and Superman 4, I don't remember which came out last, but they were both the last two Canon productions.
Yeah, Superman 4 is in the same category as this. So what was Canon, like a money laundering operation? Because just like looking over like the names of these movies, it doesn't seem like
really
there is anybody who would want to watch this. The Happy Hooker, dear Lord.
And that goes back, man. Yeah, that was based on the book series from the 70s, if I'm not mistaken. The Happy Hooker.
Oh,
Happy Hooker goes to Washington.
Oh man, they did the Texas Chainsaw Massacre too. That makes perfect sense.
That one, that's a guilty pleasure of mine. I like number 2, dark comedy and grisly. That was not like other slashers at that time. I still quote that.
Oh man, it's almost like a 180 from the original because the original's so serious and gritty and almost more like a documentary than it is a movie.
And you know who the narrator is at the beginning?
Who?
John Larroquette.
Really?
Dan Fielding on Night Court.
Oh, and now He-Man's got golden armor. Man, in comparison with other sword and sorcery, well, I mean, more sword and sci-fi in this case, but still like sword and sorcery style epics, like, this one really doesn't hold a candle to like Conan the Barbarian or even Beastmaster.
A little bit of Wizard of Oz here.
Right? And you were there. And you were there. Was I there? No, Charlie. Go home. Go play with your sins.
Yeah, this is the part that cracks me up. Look what she's wearing. Her bedclothes.
Yeah, who's
A
like
teenage 80s girl.
No way. No way she's wearing it. It looks like something a 5-year-old would wear to bed. But I don't know, maybe her grandma bought it for her for Christmas. Oh, and her parents are back to life. Aww.
Something tells me on the set, if I ever meet Courtney Cox, I'm like, when they told you what you were going to wear, when you reported for wardrobe, were you like, seriously, this is, no.
Now, do they really even explain how He-Man's able to bring her parents back from the dead? Or just send her back in time a little bit earlier, maybe?
Reasons?
But, like, if they sent her back in time earlier, then wouldn't there be 2 Courtney Coxes? I mean, you know what I mean?
Yes. Maybe he came back less of a douche, the boyfriend there.
I mean, he's still wearing that leather jacket with a pink flannel underneath it. Oh, man.
I still have my leather jacket.
Oh, so whenever they miss He-Man, they can just stare into the stone.
When this was over, I think I saw it with my cousin Mike. We saw a lot of shitty movies together. And we just kind of like look at each other like, what the hell did we just watch? And we're laughing, we shake our heads, and we leave the theater. I did not know until like maybe last year that it had a post-credit scene, which is common now. But back in the day, it is rare. I mean, in my lifetime...
Oh, yeah. You've never had movies with post-credit scenes.
In my lifetime, since, 2005, 7, I could literally count on one hand how many times there was a post-credit scene for anything.
Well, what other ones would there have been? This is the only one that I know of.
Airplane, at the end of the movie Airplane, the guy is in the taxi. I'll give him 5 more minutes. I think that was the first post-credit I had ever seen.
Yeah, and then Ferris Bueller did it as well.
Yes.
That would have been,
yes.
a year or
80
two before this one?
That was about 86, 80, yeah, about
Yeah.
a year before. Yeah, that is maybe, Ferris Bueller, that is probably the most famous post-credit sequence prior to the 2000s.
Oh, absolutely. Well, I mean, it's so iconic, even Deadpool spoofed it.
And I think that brought more popularity to it.
Oh, definitely, definitely. Well, I mean, there's always been a pretty good interest in Ferris Bueller as a character.
In fact, think about it. Ferris Bueller had the mid-post-credit sequence where Rooney's walking down the street and gets on the bus.
Yeah, that's true.
That was before Marvel.
Yeah, so Marvel just adapted the
Ferris Bueller.
The Ferris Bueller model, because like originally they just did the post-credit scene at the end. Then they started adding the mid-post-credit scene because people don't want to wait all the way to the end, right? So you get your little story point, and then you get that little nod.
And you know what? You might be
at
right.
the end.
Yeah, because Daredevil did it. Mid-post-credit sequence, you got Bullseye in the hospital, and then the rest of the credits come on. But there was no post credit, just a mid-credit scene with Daredevil. And then X-Men 3, oh my gosh. Where Xavier comes out of the coma, he transplanted his mind into that body. And I didn't even know that until DVD, I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but plus those
X-Men
post-credits were always such trash, because they never even really, they never fit the timeline that they were established in, and it really, like, made you guess going forward. Like, what was it, the end of the Wolverine, they like hinted at the Days of Future Past.
Yeah.
Like, how did they really hint at that? Because the Sentinels would have already been made in the 60s, and the movie picks up. It just makes no sense. So how would they have known about it? I don't know. It's just dumb.
And here comes one of the first post-credit sequences.
Man, I'm so glad they put a post-credit sequence in that they weren't going to deliver on, because this movie did not need a sequel. He'll be back. Good lighting, though, I will say.
Yeah.
On a lot of the Skeletor, like the green contrasting with the pinks, really similar to what they did on like Creepshow, stuff like that. So overall, out of a 10 scale, what would you rate this movie?
This is even on the scale. You know what? Primarily for Frank Langella, I'm looking at maybe a solid 3.
Yeah, I'd probably put around the 3.5 to 4 range, because there's a lot good about this movie. The editing is fantastic. That 65 millimeter really holds up the picture quality when looking at it in HD today. The effects are still on point. They're still
some of the blue screen's not working.
Some of the blue screen stands out, but overall, I would say the quality's still there.
And you know what? I suspect that as the money began to run out, that's where the cheaper effects are coming into play.
Right. Well, I mean, plus with, just with their budget constraints, like, if they had the right budget with this movie, it would have been phenomenal. They could have actually kept it in Eternia. They could have actually explored that world and built it up to the point that you'd actually want a sequel, because this doesn't really establish a world that people are going to want to return to. Like, they go to a town in like Ohio in 1987. Nobody wants to go to a town in Ohio.
I want escapism.
Yeah. And if I'm going to escape, I'm not going to Ohio. So yeah, that was Masters of the Universe. Not very good. Still, it's an iconic movie. People love it just because they love the He-Man mythos. And, He-Man's about to have a resurgence because of that anime series. I bet Netflix does it right. I bet it creates a lot of interest. And I am hoping that interest can actually breed into a reboot so they can actually do this movie right. Because with today's CGI and green screen effects, I mean, you could get a guy like Peter Jackson in there who could just blow this movie out of the water.
You know, these days, it's so easy to do, and especially after Game of Thrones and all that, if you're going to do a He-Man anything, bring something new to the table. You know,
Yeah.
I really did not like these Thor movies. Of the Marvel movies, I felt they were the weakest because all I got from the Thor movies was Lord of the Rings warmed over. A lot of the
Right.
a lot of the elements of the whenever Thor appeared elsewhere, you know, not bad, you know, Avengers, but the Thor movies themselves, Legions of Armies and things like that. And even with the last few Marvel movies,
Well,
whenever
I
they
mean,
had the land battles.
and then, well, the thing about Thor is that when they did do something new with Thor Ragnarok, they brought something new to the table.
I think that's part of why it worked.
Yeah, it didn't rely on the fantasy elements as much because with the way that they were setting up Thor as being more based in science fiction than fantasy,
Yeah.
you really can't keep those elements as strong because sci-fi and fantasy, their two genres just kind of clash with each other at
And
times.
that was the saddest thing. If you've gone back, and that's why I was disappointed, if you've gone back and read the Thor stories from the 60s and then the great Simonson run of the 80s, that fantasy element, it was so fantastic. The movies, they couldn't come close. The movies didn't even come close to the imagination and the creativity. And I know that imagination and creativity is out there because I thought to myself, between The Wizard of Oz, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, the early Star Wars trilogy, it's like I know that creativity and imagination is there in cinema, that it could have been, but instead they chose to use things established already. And that's where I felt the Thor movies failed. It's like, no, chart some new ground, build something. Oh my God, be as fanciful and exotic and wild as you want visually.
Yeah.
And they never quite caught that. If
Well,
He-Man could do something like that.
And then see, that's the problem with this movie is that this movie suffers from the exact same issues.
Yes.
I mean, but the difference is, you know, Disney they didn't have the budget restraints, right?
Right.
They were trying to cater something to an audience. If He-Man had a Disney style budget, oh man, they'd put out an epic trilogy of movies, no
Yeah.
doubt.
I put down ground rules. Look, we are not going to raid Game of Thrones. We are not going to raid Lord of the Rings for this Masters Universe movie.
Yep.
We're going to go fanciful. We're going to be, you know, that's like Kevin Costner did that Robin Hood movie and it had some success, but it was too much reality. The cinematography, it was dark. It was, hey, yeah, this is England, this is stuff. But I still had a love for the classic Errol Flynn Robin Hood movie because it was so vibrant, it was so colorful, it was escapism.
Now, see, whenever I think of Robin Hood, unfortunately, my childhood is tainted to always think of Men in Tights first.
Hey, yeah, bud.
We're manly men with tight tights. That's just my definitive Robin Hood.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I love that one. So that was Masters of the Universe. Not a very good movie. Though, you know, it's an enjoyable movie. You could have some fun with this one. It does get boring at times.
Don't take it seriously. Yes.
Definitely don't take it seriously. And you know what? Don't have any high expectations. It's just simple as that. If you come into this movie with a low bar, you're going to enjoy yourself. Because, I mean, it's just 80s muscles at its peak.
True.
And it was actually probably one of the last, like, dying breaths of that genre because in the 90s, I don't believe that they had any real, like, sword and sorcery films.
No. Conan kicked it off in 82, and then you had The Sword and the Sorcerer, and you know what? The marriage of sci-fi with sword and sorcery, Beastmaster, I'll include that. That was like an 80s thing. By 90, that had been played out. That was one of those 80s genres played out.
Yeah, that was... because, I mean, really you had more of a focus on... Actually, I don't even want to say sci-fi, but more like political thrillers in the 90s.
And you know what? Political thrillers, big in the early 70s. These waves come in, they last maybe a good 6 years or so.
Mm-hmm.
And then they disappear. If you remember, after Gladiator came out, a ton of either biblical epics or things like Gladiator, a lot of sword and sandal
Oh yeah, you had Troy that
Return
came
to-
out
oh,
right
Troy,
after that.
Kingdom of Heaven.
Kingdom of Heaven. You had.
I think like 2 to 3 hours, usually 3 hours.
And then you had like the Jason and the Argonauts remake as well. Not Jason and the Argonauts. Clash of the Titans.
Yes, yes.
You made that.
And you know
made
what?
that one.
And that the first time around, that was in the 50s and 60s. And that lasted maybe a good 7, 8 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, these things come back and they disappear. Come back and they disappear. Look at that. That's got to be Drew Struzan. He was popular painter for movie posters.
Oh,
and
yeah,
novels.
yeah. Yeah, he actually did. Well, I mean, his work was so iconic. They had him come in and do a spoof of his own work with National Lampoon's.
Yes.
Oh, it goes back and it comes away. And just like that, we are out of here. This has been This Movie Sucks, the podcast where we watch bad movies so you don't have to. Next week, we are going to be watching a horror classic, the 1983 movie Sleepaway Camp. One of the most iconic horror endings in film history.
Wow.
So if you want to get deep in some B-movie classic, tune in next week, and we are out of here.